Welcome to Not Just Money with your hosts, Doretta and Lee. This isn't your typical podcast about finances. It's a podcast about all the money conversations we aren't having, sometimes not even with ourselves. Join us on this journey of hard truths, lived experience, and the wisdom that comes from both. Because money is never just about money.
Hey Lee, great job on your solo episode last week. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. It was fun to wade through the mailbag, though I have to say it was super weird talking to myself like that. It almost felt like one long run-on sentence or one long stream of consciousness.
Well, I'll tell you, I had to laugh a few times, like somebody wanting advice on getting a bitch suit. I mean, that is too funny. I guess power dressing's still a thing,
Hey, some things never go out of style.
I guess. Okay, so today's subject is an interesting one, I think. Money and relationship status.
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to do a deep dive on this one because there are so many hard realities here. And well, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. An excellent holiday to get you to spend money.
Okay, so let's start by getting the facts on the table. I've done some digging to get clarity on what the data tell us, and I have to say that while the basics didn't surprise me, I mean, it's pretty obvious that on a household basis, married or common law couples probably going to build more wealth than a single person. But the quantum of the difference really surprised me. If you break it down on a per capita basis, it's not quite so stark, but it's still really significant.
So what did you find?
So, okay, this is from StatsCan's 2023 survey of financial security, and that's based on data from 2022, which is the latest info available. There'll be another one coming out later this year, early next year, which will be interesting to look out for. And I'd really like to see what the high income skews do in that one. But let's just take a quick look at the data. As I understand it, basically couples, married or common law, because StatsCan gathers data by economic family types, they don't distinguish, tend to have 3 to 4 times higher net worth than single individuals in the same age group. 3 to 4 times. That translates to about 1.5 to twice the net worth on an individual basis. I got that just by dividing the couple net worth equally.
Bananas.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, yeah. Now, the gap is widest between the ages of 45 and 64, because that's when home equity and retirement savings are the biggest. And it narrows over age 65, actually narrows quite a lot, as couples are drawing down their assets. I also think the mix of singles changes in the over 65 group because as people are widowed, the surviving partner now has all the couple's remaining assets. So I'll just give you a quick view of it on an average basis. And the median, if you look at it by median income, it shows the same pattern. You just, in the averages, you see more of the high income skew. So basically, now we're looking at a household basis here, okay? So not an individual basis. I'll give you a sense of the individual basis as well. For people under 35, the net worth of a couple is about $340,000. For the single individual, that's $90,000. You take that couple and divide their net worth in half, then you get 170 to 90. Still big difference. 35 to 44 age group, you're looking at a household net worth of $640,000 compared to 190 for the individual. 320 if you divide the household income in half for the couples. 45 to 54, this is huge. You're looking at 1.1 million compared to 330,000 on a household basis, couples versus singles. 55 to 64 is where you see the biggest difference. 1.4 million compared to 460,000. And then at 65 plus, you're looking at 1.2 million compared to 520. But when you divide that in half, you're getting close to equal because it's 600K. So those are the gaps.
Wow. Those are insane gaps, especially when you look kind of that mid-age bracket.
Yeah.
But let me guess, biggest drivers are what, dual incomes and probably home ownership?
Yep. Yep. That's exactly right. And when you think about it in terms of standard of living, and that's the way you have to think about it. I mean, my simple exercise of cutting net assets in half is pretty revealing. So, a couple who's living in a $1 million single family home.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Can you believe that you're just throwing out $1 million homes as if it's like no big deal? That's still a lot of money.
I know. But we're sitting here in Toronto, and the average single family home here in Toronto is 1.2 million. Just saying. My point
Yes.
is, the couple is living that standard of living. You divide it in half, and they're each living in a $500,000 condo, because I don't think there's such a thing as a $500,000 house in Toronto. Whole different standard of living, as most divorcing couples will tell you.
Yeah. Now they both need like, I guess, like two couches and toasters and lamps or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that really gives you a window into what's often called the single supplement. Now, I'm not saying the old adage that two people can live as cheaply as one is true, but I am saying they can certainly maintain the same standard of living more cheaply than one person can on their own. The Royal Bank Cost of Being Single report. And they estimated that in 2024, the average single person living alone spends about $6,700 more per year than a person in a couple to meet the same basic standard of living. And we'll stick a link in the program notes so that you can take a look at that report if you want to, because it's really interesting.
I question that a little. And I know, we all know the downsides of averages. I honestly think personally I spend more as a couple and family than I ever did as a single person. But let's take a look at those added costs of singledom because it is true, that's real. The singles tax, much like the poverty tax. And while we're at it, maybe we can cover some strategies for compensating. Right? I mean, the obvious place to start is with fixed costs, household level costs, rent or mortgage, property taxes, utility, insurance, internet. Couples split them, single people are responsible for all of it, which means a much higher cost per person for the same roof, heat, and internet service.
Not to mention that most housing stock is priced assuming two earners. So that means that singles generally either have to spend a higher percentage of their income on housing or they have to purchase more modestly, which means further away from civilization, generally speaking. And the gap is even bigger in cities like Toronto and Vancouver. So, suggestions for
Yeah.
mitigating?
I mean, the obvious one is sharing, which I know when you look at the stats, it is on the rise in Canada, but we all know that has its own challenges.
But it is the fastest growing category of households in the country, especially in major cities.
Well, the reality is that so much of our society has this built-in bias towards couples, like you mentioned. So, if there are ways you can take advantage of that with family and friends.
I know sisters who've bought a house together. It's worked out really well for them, but I don't think that would work for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I really think liking someone and living with them, not the same thing.
Not for sure. But here's another thing that's really important to consider. The cost differential isn't just in the big household expenses. It's day-to-day stuff as well. Single people typically pay more per unit, even for the essentials. Like just buying smaller quantities costs you more.
Terrible. It's like a tax on living alone.
Yep, exactly what it is. And so many prices are set up for households or for bundles, right? Not for individuals. I mean, think about things like phone plans and streaming services, even gym memberships that have family rates. All that stuff is just cheaper per person.
Now, travel is another area where there's that big extra cost. I mean, just hotel rooms. Single folks have to foot the entire bill. There's a reason trips list a single supplement.
Yep, and it's significant. Like it's often 50 to 100%. So it's huge. Okay, so we could go on, but I'm sure all you single folks out there are very well aware of the differential. and you know when you've had to pay more for something. But really, it all boils down to one really important takeaway. You need to understand from all of this and from anecdote is that the financial gap compounds over time. So remember what the RBC study said? $6,700 more per year. That's what the single person is paying. That's $6,700 you aren't saving, that you aren't investing, that you aren't putting aside for emergencies. So over time, that single supplement, it's actually eating away at your ability to build wealth. I mean, unless you do something to compensate for that, which we'll get into in a minute. Even when you make as much money as your coupled friends. Now think about that.
I don't know if I completely agree with that. I think income matters. If you were making the same amount as your coupled friends, that would make a difference, I think. These stats assume that single people make less than their coupled counterparts. This whole single income versus dual income. But I do think I am better off if I make more than my coupled friends. Yeah, yes, I do.
Course you do, but I think you're kind of missing the point of the example. This is about averages. You know what economists are like. Assume X. That assume bit, that's really, really
Yeah,
important.
yeah.
So think about the example we're working with. It assumes three people, all making the same amount of money. Two of them are paired, so their combined income is double to support a single household. The third one is not only trying to support her own single household, but she's got to pay more to do it so that the couple has more money to save because it's cheaper for them to maintain the same standard of living. That's what this example is trying to highlight and quantify. And again, it's using averages. It's trying to show that it isn't about lifestyle choices. It's actually about systemic inequities.
I mean, I don't disagree with you there. But at the end of the day, I think it's about the math, right? If I make more money, I can afford more of the single supplement, singles tax, whatever you want to call it. And I think that tips the scales.
Of course it does. In fact, you have two options. You can make more money or you can spend less. We're violently agreeing here, Lee.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. So now that we've looked at the single supplement, let's take a look at the world of the couple, which is 57% of Canadians over the age of 15 who are either married or common law, according to the 2021 census.
I don't think 15-year-olds can marry in Canada, can they?
This is me shrugging. That's the Stats Canada age range. So let's take a look at the power of that couple as a financial unit.
I wonder if that's where the saying power couple comes from.
I don't think so.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. That just made me think of it. But it makes clearly a huge difference, right? In fact, like you mentioned, 3 to 4 times. So we've already referenced the key factors in the ability of couples to accumulate wealth, like dual income and home ownership. And of course, we've also ignored the one big glaring problem with couples, decoupling.
No, we're not going to go there, not in this episode.
Eh,
We'll take a deep dive on decoupling in a
yeah.
future episode with an expert.
Maybe after a couple of drinks or something.
Okay, but let's focus on the plus side of the equation, on that financial superpower. I think, I think what really comes down to is shared goals.
What do you mean?
I think the key to the successful couple's financial powerhouse is when they share their goals. When you're aligned on what it is you want to achieve, then you can make decisions together and really maximize all those things that work against singletons. I mean, think about it. All else being equal, the single person's paying that extra $6,700. That means our average couple is not paying twice that, $13,400, rising every year with inflation. Even if they don't do anything else, $13,400 a year.
Yeah, I mean, that's one heck of a head start in terms of wealth acquisition. Unless lifestyle creep and you spend that as a couple,
Yeah.
we know some examples of that.
Yeah.
It's also kind of artificial because we all know that averages are averages. They don't literally apply.
Agreed. But whatever your numbers, the principles hold. I mean, couples generally have more dollars on the income side and more opportunity to reduce expenditures by cost sharing on the output side. So if you're in a couple, recognize that, own that, make it work for you, apply it to your shared goals. I really think that that's the secret for couples to really harness the power of their combined ability to build wealth. Because shared goals are really the inspiration that keeps you on track. So, whether you're saving for a down payment, building your investment portfolio, or even paying down debt, the key thing to focus on, I think, is that shared goal piece. That's my experience anyway. And my general conclusion from decades of conducting and reviewing research and observing family and friends.
I am always going back to values. I think that's critical. Being on the same page for values helps to carve out the goals that make the most sense. Then it's just a matter of planning in advance for those big expenses that come along. Then the key driver becomes communication and compromise. That's the key in my mind for maintaining a healthy and long-lasting relationship.
Yeah, I agree with that. But to be honest, I kind of take the shared values as a given. I mean, that's what underlies your shared goals. I'm just thinking there's some interesting demographic trends that kind of support this. This alignment on goals thing.
Such as?
Well, people are marrying later for one thing. I mean, for boomers and Gen X, and probably before that too, life stages were pretty predictable. I mean, you finished school, you got a job, you got married, you bought a house, you had kids, and you did it pretty much in that order. But that hasn't been true for a few decades now. And now people are marrying much later, and they're often living together until they're ready for one of those big steps, like a house or a kid.
I think it goes beyond just shared goals. I think there is more to it.
Like what?
I think it eventually becomes shared goals, but I'm not sure it starts there. I think when women started being able to earn a good income and sustain themselves independently, it meant we could afford to be coupled later. Although looking at the stats, maybe we all need to get married earlier. I also think that technology and the ease of dating has really changed the landscape on early marriages. Yes, I am definitely in the latter category. I got married later. We lived together until the kid, very common, and then we bought a condo. Things just kind of happened for me. I wasn't looking to get married, but it all kind of fell into place over COVID. But the point is, I didn't need to be coupled, and I would have been fine being single. Don't get me wrong, being married is nice. And I do think I have more wealth being married, late as it was.
Finances are a really critical part of partnership. Money disagreements are a huge predictor of divorce, by some counts, even more than incompatibility or infidelity. A lot of survey results suggest that financial issues figure in almost 70% of the divorces in Canada.
I believe it. I think it's probably higher. The thing is, however you work out your financial reality with your partner, it has to be based on honesty and transparency. And there's something to be said about understanding where your partner is. We talked about money stories before. This is where that's a critical component.
I'll tell you a really weird story about that. A few years ago, back when we used to get the physical Sunday Times as a weekend luxury, I remember reading one of those social columns, where people write in for advice.
Oh God.
And this guy wrote in, this is too weird for words. This guy wrote in asking if and how he should tell his wife, who was a doctor who worked really hard, that he never actually worked a day in his life, that he was a trust fund baby with an income of $25,000 a month. And when they first met, he told her he was a consultant, and he just never corrected it. And it was apparently that was how he used to fend off gold diggers or something. I don't know. But his family said to him, don't tell her. And here's the thing, when he's writing this in, They'd been married for 6 years.
Let this be a lesson not to read the column or whatever. Um, Sorry, that's dumb. Did he just pretend to go to his consulting job every day? And as a spouse, don't you ask about what projects they're working on? I don't know. I think this is fake news. Maybe like the earliest version where it wasn't online. And if it was real, and if it were me, I'd divorce the guy and take half. That's crazy. 6 years. At no point in those 6 years did you think, hey, I should correct this falsehood? I have so many questions.
I mean, this was a long time ago, so it was really before the fake news thing. I mean, maybe it was a planted
Well,
question, I don't know, but it was so shocking, I kind of think it wasn't, because if you're gonna make up a question for that, that is not the question you would make up because people wouldn't believe it. But
I don't know. Maybe that's the birth of fake news.
who
Well,
know
there
I
you go. We
but
found the root of it.
what you're saying though about, like, of course you'd divorce him, that's exactly what he was afraid of, that if he told her now, she'd divorce him, and I agree, she should divorce him.
And take
Anyway,
half.
and
That's
take half.
important. Take
Yes,
half.
yes. Okay, so let's rather than liars and cheaters, let's look at how successful couples manage their money to build their wealth together. High level.
Well, where would you start?
I'd start with purpose. I mean, it's all about the why, the shared goals, and as you would say, the shared values that underlie them. I I really believe that it all begins with that security, freedom, generosity, time, legacy. What are the things that are important to you? I think that you need to ask each other and understand, questions like what does enough look like for us? What are we trying to protect? What are we trying to grow? What trade offs are worth it for us and what aren't? What's our risk tolerance?
Yeah. I mean, that's the why. And I think it's important to keep asking yourselves those questions because whys can also change.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and I would also add the how. I mean, money should be something you talk about as a couple, early, calmly, and as often that feels right, but regular check-ins complete with numbers so it's not like some mythical idea. And any and all questions should be welcome.
Absolutely. Totally agree. It's really important that you're both on top of the basics, income, debt, savings, obligations. Even if one of you is doing most of the actual, day to day management of that stuff, no secrets, no surprises.
Yeah, and another thing is I think it's important that no matter how you decide to combine your resources, there has to be room for both of you to have some autonomy. It's not about being the same. Ooh, I have another Chinese saying for you. Okay, are you ready? Write this down.
I'm ready. I'm
Uh,
ready.
wearing wearing the same pair of pants. It's alluding to couples who are so close that they share the same pair of pants and it's about,
Good man.
working things out. Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, I had an uncle and my aunt. They always called them that way. Like one wouldn't eat dinner without the other, even if it was super late. But it's about working things out in a way that makes sense for both of you.
Yeah, it's really, really important observation. Same pair of pants notwithstanding. It's about balancing joint responsibility with personal freedom. You don't want either of you to get resentful. So I think
Yeah.
a really good place to start with that is like have a joint account for your shared expenses, individual accounts for discretionary spending, and just really clear rules around what counts as ours versus mine.
Yeah, and I think it also avoids secrets later on, or I'm sure we'll mention financial infidelity, because if you don't have autonomy, that's what kind of starts creeping in. So, how have you made it work in your life?
I think it helps that both my husband and I are both pretty frugal. We were never big spenders, so that kind of changes the conversations that we needed to have. Um, And also, we're in a really different stage of life than you are. So while we were always aligned on goals and we made all our big decisions together, these days our big decisions are really just about travel and destinations. They're not about dollars. So being retired is just really different because we're not
Nice
saving.
problem to have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, well. Hey, a lot of years of dedication.
Yes, I
But
know. Like, but you're in your spending years, right? It's
that's
different.
right.
It's a total
That's
different
right.
mindset.
That's right. That's exactly right. So what about you?
My husband is a scientist, and if you know what that means, you know what that means. So money has never really been his focus, and he's not an extravagant person either, which I think really helps. Like I mentioned before, he's a minimalist, and he's been that way since I met him. I think a lot of it has to do with his own money demons from before my time. But it's funny, on our first date, one of the first things he said to me was, "I have no debts."
Isn't that when you knew he was the one?
I mean, clearly it made an impact because I don't remember all of that first date, but I remember that one, and it was definitely a first for me. Like I'd never had anybody say that to me on a first date. But I think what makes a difference for us is that we went through all the money conversations you should have before coupling. We also made a list of everything we didn't have and would need once we were going through those big changes, like once we were expecting. And it's always like the usual stuff, like life insurance, wills, estates. Then it was a matter of deciding who looked after what in our financial household. When the roles are clear, there's less room for financial infidelity or conflict.
Well done, you, both of you. I think
Thanks.
I think another thing that enables couples to really maximize their ability to build wealth is how they manage financial stress, like how they support each other and create emotional safety. I think if you can get that right, you can pretty much manage challenges as shared problems, not something that becomes a blame game. And blame games are deadly.
Yeah, that is really important. There are a lot of things that can happen over your life together. Think about how much time
Yeah.
passes and changes in income, job losses, maternity leaves, debt, illness. This is life. It's really important that you are able to approach these things as a couple together and to talk about them. Like all these hard-hitting negative events can have a greater impact than just financial. Your partner should be there for you through it all.
Agree. Oh, I don't know. I think I'm pretty old fashioned in this regard, in the sense that to me, it's really about being a team. It isn't about who earns the most or who has suffered a loss. It really is about being in it together, facing it together, being able to adjust to real life together, solving problems, not assigning blame. I've mentioned before, I got married very young and we started with literally nothing and we built everything together. And I think that's kind of a different bond.
Yes, I think this is true. I mean, I have a marriage contract, which is also just another word for prenup, and I'm a big supporter of it. It is easier to be reasonable when negotiating the separation when you still like each other. I have parents who are dependents, and I had a baby on the way, so there were far more considerations than just financial. And people who say love is forever or whatever nonsense, sorry, divorce debts are real. Not all of us will make it. It's sad but true. So know your worth. This is part of it. And the last thing I'd say is to have a system with regular check ins. Every summer we do a long drive to see my husband's parents. So he's stuck in the car with me for 2 hours. So we have a very thorough conversation then. I mean, he's a captive audience at that point.
Might change when your daughter's a little older. Maybe those are conversations you're not going to want to have with little ears listening in.
Laws. You know what though? I actually have no objections to that. I think that the more we expose our children to these important topics, maybe the less hesitation they'll have to talk about it when they're
Maybe.
older. But, the point is things change over time, and that includes financial things. It's about planned resilience. Healthy couples expect money agreements to evolve with careers and kids, aging parents, and energy levels, and all that stuff changes over time.
Yep, so true. I think it's really important to have regular money check ins, at least annually or semi annually. And in addition to that, with every major life change, like a new job, a new house, a new baby, anything that's
Yeah.
like big, momentous change in life, because It's not just that single big change, it affects everything. And I think that it's really important that you can each be really honest about what is working and what's not working for you at any given point in time.
Yeah, I think overall what it comes down to is clarity and respect and emotional safety and fairness as the two of you define it. And this holds true for all marriages, including those with, marriage contracts to protect assets that individuals bring into the partnership, or second marriages and all those complex relationships.
And I'd highlight what you said there about fairness as you two define it, because you need to take the time and the care to define what fair means for you, because it doesn't
Yep.
mean the same thing for everybody. It
hmm
can well mean separating fair from equal.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. I mean, equal splits may be easy, but for a lot of people, proportional contributions are more fair because fairness isn't about symmetry, it's about impact. Are you sharing the victories and the pains?
So I think that was a pretty good overview of what a healthy approach to couple finances might look like. But remember that disturbing figure of almost 70% of divorces having financial issues? So, why don't
Yep.
we just take a quick minute to go over money problem red flags that couples might see emerging? Um, because if you see any of these things emerging in your own relationships, now's the time to deal with it, right?
Yep.
Okay, you start.
Okay, I'd start with one or both of you either actively avoiding money conversations or only talking about money when you fight. I think that's a bad sign.
Oh, yeah, especially when money creeps into every point of disagreement between you. I'd add secret spending or hidden accounts. That's what we call
Mm.
financial infidelity. And honestly, it's more about the lying than it is about the dollars.
Yeah, actually, I think secrecy around money in general. If you're afraid to tell the truth about money, the issues isn't money, it's trust. It's like going back to your other example, like 6 years and you don't tell your spouse what you do for a living and where that money comes from. I think there's just so much more to uncover there. It's not just the money.
I think another sign is when one partner controls all the financial information. Now, I'm not talking about one partner taking the lead on it. That's pretty normal in a relationship. Couples are always trading off on responsibilities, right? And so you kind of tend to do the thing that you're best at or that you have the most time for, you're most interested in, whatever. That is, in fact, one of the partnership superpowers that you get to share like that. But what I'm talking
Yep.
about is one person not just handling everything, but the other person not having any access, not knowing the passwords, not understanding what's going on. That's not partnership. That's creating dependence.
Or back to your previous comment, secrecy, right? I'd also say blaming instead of problem solving. When you disagree about money, you should be asking, how do we fix this? Not yelling, how could you do this?
Another one is double standards, and that's kind of related to that, where one person's spending is necessary, but the other's is reckless, even though they're more or less the same kind of spending. That's why I'm a big fan of having like each of you having a discretionary budget that you don't have to account for because everybody needs a little room for autonomy, right? But double standards, that's a whole different thing. That signals a power imbalance. It's not budgeting differences.
I really love that one. Broken agreements, especially when it becomes a pattern, like when you agree to budgets, limits, or plans, and then they get ignored without discussion. Surefire path to resentment.
Yep. Okay. I think there were some pretty good guidelines for unlocking the wealth building superpower of couples and some of the warning signs of potential trouble ahead. And I think it's a pretty good place for us to stop for today. I was going to suggest we take a deeper look at cautionary tale side of things for how coupling can turn into a disaster, but I'm actually kind of thinking we should leave that for next week and stop here for today. So, 3 key learnings.
Well, that's definitely something to look forward to if you've listened to today's episode. If you're single and you plan to stay single, or if that's just how the world works out for you, life will cost you more. It just will. Money in will be less than with a partner, and money out on a per capita basis for fixed expenses will probably be more. And because life costs more, it will be harder to save. This doesn't mean that you cannot build enough wealth for a good life. You absolutely can. You just need to be smart about it. And on the plus side, you are in complete control of all your money decisions. You've got this.
Number two, building on that, the data is very clear that couples, family units build more wealth over time, and the reasons for it are pretty clear. More money in, less money out on a per capita basis for the same lifestyle. And beneath all of that data, the key to prosperity is shared values and goals, and that requires honesty and transparency. So it's really important that you learn to talk about money in a really clear, calm way to keep yourselves on track together. And when it comes to building wealth, the commitment to shared goals trumps pretty much everything, including different money profiles. Even a saver and a spender can make a powerful team as long as they're working together.
And finally, I'd say if you're partnered, remember that alignment is an ongoing exercise. It's not one and done. You need to review your plans regularly. And with every major life change, no blaming. You're in it together. So make sure you stay on the same side.
There you have it, relationship status and building wealth. And that's us for today. If you've some thoughts to add to this conversation, why don't you drop us a line at notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com.
Good talk.
You've been listening to Not Just Money with Doretta and Lee. Click on the show's description for links to resources related to today's conversation. Our aim is to share sources that provide objective information that can help you make informed financial decisions. Please rate and review our show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, email us at notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to be featured on the show, you can send us your questions and comments by a written email, audio file, or video file. Please include your name and city. This show is produced and edited by Lee, with original music by Leo Zhang cello and artwork by John Tu. Now for some legalese. Please note that the views expressed by our hosts and guests are theirs alone and should not be viewed as financial advice. This podcast is intended to be entertainment and educational in nature. Please seek additional professional support or information before acting on any podcast information. As always, good talk.